Good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel Crusoe. I am the product manager on the configure team. I have 1100 Eastern, 1500 UTC. So let's get started with a group conversation. Hopefully you had a chance to review the slides that were linked. So there's a Google Doc in the invite, and the Google Doc has the link, the slides on bullet number 2. So looking forward to any questions that you have regarding the team, the stuff that we're working on, or anything else that's on your mind.
Yeah, I looked at the slides. I was kind of curious about chaos engineering and what we're going to be doing in that area.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So chaos engineering, for those that are not familiar with it, is an area of engineering where operators intentionally introduce disruptions into their architecture and their platforms where they run their code, their apps. So this was made kind of more broad and popular by Netflix with Chaos Monkey. So the plan that we have there is basically give operators a way to introduce some chaos into the world. And I think that because we are very tightly integrated with Kubernetes, it makes sense for us to start there. Inside GitLab, we've already made use of some tools that aid us in doing this. More specifically, KubeMonkey has been used by some of the teams here. And we feel that that's kind of a truly minimal MVC, where you could imagine we would allow our GitLab integration with Kubernetes to install KubeMonkey and basically give operators a way to configure how they want the tool to behave on their cluster. And basically, that would be kind of a first iteration that could work. And then in the future, we could envision something like a dashboard that shows an operator what kind of chaos they have introduced, how resilient their system has or hasn't been, and then provide basically that feedback so that an operator could then make changes based on that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I noticed that that Gremlin has been working with Spinnaker, so they integrated with that. I'm just kind of curious about what our plans were, if there was going to be more of kind of like a like-to-like, or it sounds like obviously we followed the MVC convention and go from there. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Sid, do you want to verbalize your question?
Sure. So we have a way to install applications easily from GitLab on Kubernetes, but I'm kind of missing a word to refer to it. I think people have all kinds of words to refer to it, and I think it's a bit, I'm not even sure what the word is, but I have the feeling that it's not consistent across how we refer to it, what's in the docs and what's in the user interface, and it's not concise. So maybe we should think of a term for it. I don't have a great one. Maybe it's the GitLab Helm store or something like that. But is the problem there, or is it like, oh no, we use this term and it's super clear?
Well, so I think that organically what has happened is that we use the same term as we use for the namespace, which is GitLab managed apps. We call the applications that we manage to our Kubernetes integration the same thing. But you're right, it is too long. And when we're chatting with end users, we may or may not use the same term depending on their level of involvement. So I think that it is a problem. Albeit I don't think it's a big one, but it is a problem and something that we have on the radar to kind of standardize. So yeah, that's good feedback. And naming is hard, so we haven't come up with any strong names, but I think that GitLab apps may be a good start. I don't know if we want to involve Helm heavily in the naming, but yeah.
Hey, Daniel, I see you've got roadmap slides up there. I'm curious to put it in context. Are we on track to deliver on our Q1 OKRs, specifically the new minimal categories and the minimal to viable changes? And then more broadly, looking at the FY20 maturity page, are we on track to deliver on those goals?
So thanks, Mark, for the question. Our Q1 basically ended with 1110. And we had two things that were kind of heavily going to fall on their figure. And one was taking some of our categories into viable. So namely, our Kubernetes integration was one of those. And we agreed that kind of uninstalling applications from your cluster was what we were going to need to call it viable. That's part of 1111. So unfortunately, it did not make it into Q1. That was the first one. And the second one was the number of new categories. And we hoped that we could fit cluster cost optimization as part of Q1. But unfortunately, due to some other priorities, we couldn't. So we have already scheduled this for the summer. But on those two, we did not deliver as we hoped. Thanks for the question.
Great. What about the rest of the year? Have you looked at like our end of 2020 goals?
So the end of 2020 goals, I think the one that we will have the most impact there is the number of new categories. And I think that we will have those, albeit some of those will be at an MVC stage, but those will be there. So we're thinking of things like PaaS and chaos engineering. So the categories that are going to be new for fiscal year 2020. And another one would be, so those three, PaaS, cluster cost, and chaos, are the ones that we think that by the end of fiscal 2020, we'll have those in place.
Cool. Are any of the other categories intended to be viable by the end of the year? And how's that looking? Is that a lot more risky?
Well, so I think that the two that we want to focus on are the two most popular, which are Auto DevOps and Kubernetes. I think that Kubernetes is well on its way to be viable, and Auto DevOps as well. So the main thing that we want to do with Auto DevOps is make it smarter and basically reduce dissatisfaction due to, hey, Auto DevOps ran on this project that it doesn't even have any code, or that kind of scenario, and that would take us basically to viability, and I think that will be good on that one as well. Those are the main two that we're concerned with taking to viable on fiscal year 2020.
So the current maturity content in categories that YAML has serverless and chat ops and runbooks all getting to complete by the end of the year as well. Is that something we should adjust? Is that not practical?
That is something we should definitely adjust. Yeah, I think that we put that as a placeholder and we haven't updated it. But yes, that's something that we will be updating. So thank you for that, Mark. I've made a note to make sure we update that to a more realistic date.
Cool, thanks.
Let's see. On question number 6, I'm unsure as to who wrote it. Was that you, Mark? I don't think so. Sorry.
Yeah, Mark.
No, I think it's a different Mark. Yeah.
Oh,
Mark
all right,
Cesare.
Mark.
How you do? Yeah, I just know I run into a pain point with that. Are we going to have an AWS GK, selection soon, or?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So yes, we are planning on it. We had planned to start the work as part of 1111. Due to some bandwidth, we had to pull back a couple of things, and that was one of them. So yes, we are planning on having tighter integration with EKS, and I see that there's a lot of appetite from both users and internally at GitLab. So we recently met with the AWS product team, and we connected with the right people that are kind of guide us and give us the best practices for doing this in an integrated manner. So we're very excited to start work on that as part of 12.0. So that's going to be part of our next release.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. Seth, do you want to verbalize your question?
Sure. Yeah, this is just a quick little question, I guess. I recently was asked about Auto DevOps from somebody outside the company, and I feel like I explained it pretty well, but not super succinctly. So I was just curious to hear your elevator pitch for Auto DevOps.
Sure. So I think that in the shortest way possible, how we position Auto DevOps is the easiest way to get started with modern DevOps workflows. That's kind of the one-liner. And then if we delve a little bit more, and depending on the audience, I always tell people that everybody wants to have modern practices, but getting started is very hard, right? It's very hard to building things like security and testing and all in an integrated workflow or pipeline. So Auto DevOps gives you that modern practice all in one place. And it's the easiest way to get started and to get those modern practices that all this very advanced and innovative shops have without having to be an expert. So that's kind of how I position it. And then if it's a more technical audience, we get into the fact that it's basically simply a CI template. And now with composable Auto DevOps, this is a feature that is going to ship as part of 11.10. You can choose the parts of Auto DevOps that you want to use. So we get a lot of questions of, hey, I love Auto DevOps. I don't want to use it all, but when I pull this template, it's 1,000 lines and it's scary and it's hard. So with composable Auto DevOps, users are now able to pull in, let's say, just auto test or the security pipelines like DAST and SAST. So yeah.
Cool, thank you. I have one follow-up question actually. Do you know offhand, is this typically, when I think of using Auto DevOps, I guess I think of spinning up something new, but I wonder, are people like bringing their own existing large projects and hoping to be able to use them with Auto DevOps, or is this really just sort of the way that I had been thinking about it, spinning something up new?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I think that the more savvy the customer is in regards to GitLab CI, the less fear they have to bring it into a large project. So we have a very large customer that did basically what I pointed out earlier, just bringing in the 1,000-line template and start breaking it down to what worked for them. And they have been using GitLab for a very long time, so they're very knowledgeable about GitLab CI. But it's hard. It's hard, or it was hard, since it was so large. And if you're not accustomed to using GitLab CI, it can be very scary. But yeah, we see like the customers that are like power users of GitLab CI do bring it into their projects. Thank you, Seth. Priyanka, do you want to verbalize your question?
Yes, absolutely. So back when I'd been helping out a little with GitLab serverless, there were a few customers who had reached out who wanted to just co-create, be involved in some fashion. And I was curious if we did involve any folks, and if we did that, anything interesting we learned there.
Yeah, so when you say co-creation, do you mean co-creation of the feature itself, or what do you mean there?
I think the folks had reached out just to be able to have their voices heard. I don't know if they were going to ship for real, but I put it co-creation in the general.
Okay, yeah. So we do have a few customers that fall into those camps where so when we say GitLab customers, they want to be involved basically by voicing their use cases and how they're using GitLab serverless. And which is another great thing that I think everybody should know, is that we already have customers that are playing around with serverless and trying to fold it into their daily workflows. So that's great. And they do basically voice, hey, why do we use this versus this, or when are we going to bring this in? So they're very involved. So we have had a chance to involve customers. So it's funny, one of the customers that is the most involved with this is the same large customer that is a GitLab CI power user and brought Auto DevOps template and stuff like that. They've been playing with serverless and yeah, so we have been involved. It's not the amount of customers that we would like, because we know it's still early. And when people find that Knative is still in alpha, it's scary to use a product and invest a lot of time and configuration in a product that's not fully baked. But as time goes by, we'll see more of that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Anything interesting we learned from the customers that have been trying it, voicing opinions? Something that was unexpected. I'm just curious.
Well, yeah. So there have been a couple of things that are very specific to the use case, and they have to do with scale. So one thing that we found is that Knative performs much better on with large clusters that have a lot of memory. And apparently performance is going to be one of the things that the Knative group is going to focus on for the next couple of releases, because it seems to consume more than folks would think. So that was one. And another one was that it's kind of the pain to upgrade Knative has been voiced by the community. And so the Knative group now has made that kind of a top priority, the ability to upgrade a Knative installation without having to wipe, the whole prior installation. So that's great. And that came out of the community. So that was pretty cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mark, do you want to verbalize your question?
Sure. So I see we have this GitLab Pass. Maybe kind of, explain what that means if I understand it right. And then there's this competitive landscape. Are we competing or working with these companies? Like Heroku?
Yeah, thanks. So GitLab Pass is basically the GitLab platform as a service for your GitLab instance or for GitLab.com. And basically, a pass, for those that may not be familiar, is a platform that provides developer with the ability to just provide a project to the platform. That would be at the beginning. Use pass, and then what you get on the other end is a fully functional app that the pass is taking care of all the things behind the scenes that concern infrastructure and dependencies and things like that. So that's pass. So what we want to do with GitLab Pass is that we want to eliminate all the complexities of providing compute to users. So we see a lot of companies out there that so taking a step back, we should say that all companies want to provide their developers with Pass, but they want it to be their Pass, right? So there's a lot of customized workflows and things like this. So we do want to compete with other Pass providers in the sense that we want to provide this functionality to end users in a very elegant way. We don't want to make money on compute. So this is going to be simply a feature to enable users to do this. But I don't think that you'll see us listed as main competitors to companies like Heroku or such. I think that our main mission behind Pass is to first give free compute to everyone on GitLab.com. So let's say if you bring your project to GitLab.com, we have all this automated workflows that will pull your project from code to a running app with very minimal effort and free. So that's basically to showcase the power of a single application first. And second, for self-managed customers who are already using Kubernetes, we want to provide them a way to provide a pass for their own internal users. That's it in a nutshell. Did that answer the question,
Perfect.
Mark? Have any follow-ups?
Being free, we could be competing, huh?
Yeah,
we're not gonna give away free compute. Like that's not a very sustainable business model. So
good to hear that.
I don't think we're offering the same service. So I even wouldn't mind us making it easier to use Heroku from GitLab. Like we're not competing directly. This is much more about Knative allows you to kind of run the functionality of a pass, and we're going to allow people to do that. But we're not going to provision the compute. Like you can bring just like you can bring your own runners, you can bring your own clusters. We just want to make sure GitLab works great with that.
Yeah, so that's what we're going after with Pass is going to be, we have an instance level cluster. You can enable it to provide a pass for your users. I think that giving away free compute is not a great business model. I think that if we can do it in a sustainable and not expensive way, it would be a great experience for GitLab.com. but yeah, that's one decision that we have not taken yet. So that's something yet to be discussed. And but yeah, I hear you, Sid.
Can you maybe walk us through the build back problem that you talk about in the challenges like 9.2?
Sure. 9.2. Let me just bring that up. Yes. So there are a couple of things here. So in our serverless feature, part of the functionality that we want to provide is basically providing what we call runtimes. And a runtime is basically you specifying what language your project is running in. So GitLab will know which runtime to use and then being able to build and deploy your project. So there's a lot of stuff out there. I think that the main challenges is first, the build packs that we use on things like Auto DevOps were not designed in a cloud native way. So they are heavy and not ideal to be used with serverless. That would be number one. Number two, from the analysis that we did on the runtimes that are being used for serverless on other platforms, they don't have the architectural design that we hoped for and may not provide all the functionality that we wanted. So we think that like finding an ideal solution in the build pack world that fits our use case well was tough, and basically had a lot of trade-offs. And so this was kind of the one contender that we thought was great was making use of cloud native build packs. But there are not a lot of them, right? So there are, I think, only one or two that are out there in beta, and they didn't fit our use case well. That's why kind of we, at least initially, are using two build packs that were built or made by us. So those were kind of the main challenges. Yeah.
FYI, it looks like Heroku. Oh, sorry, just to clarify one thing. Heroku just recently put 5 build packs in beta that they use. So they're not part of the official project, but they're part of Heroku's build packs that are cloud native build packs.
So not part of the cloud native build pack project from CNCF, but this is just a Heroku.
Right, like if you look at that project repo, they're not listed there, but Heroku
right.
made an announcement about their beta of these 5 cloud native build packs that they wrote.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Mark. I'll make a note of that because I think that Auto DevOps would definitely benefit from some lighter and cloud native build pack. So we'll take a look at that. Thank you.
And I don't quite understand the reasoning. So there were only 2 available internally, so we made our own. There were only 2 available externally, so we made our own internally, and we also end up with 2.
Well, so the ones that were available didn't meet or some of the architectural guidelines that we hoped for, or they were not. They did not contain a lot of the things that we wanted to use. So we saw that coming up with our own would not take a lot of work. I think that in one iteration we came up with the Ruby and the Node.js runtimes for serverless, these build packs, and they have been performing very well. And they are, because we make them, we have a lot of flexibility to make GitLab serverless work great with them and only use the components that we need, instead of bringing something that's heavier that would provide kind of a slower experience. And so, yeah, that was basically the main reasoning.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sid. And thank you, Mark.
And
let's see.
Daniel, this is William. Was with part of the cloud native build packs, was part of the challenge there that we wanted to be able to tailor for GitLab CI, so to be able to use advanced functionality like caching and artifacts, and being able to tie serverless tighter to GitLab CI.
That's right. Yeah. So thank you, William. We are bringing those builds that are currently being done by Knative Build into GitLab CI, so we can make use of all of the features that GitLab CI already has that Knative Build doesn't have. And yeah, so that was a big part of the problem, was that they did not have a lot of features that we wanted to make use of. And by making use of our own build packs, we can kind of build that functionality straight in and provide, you know, a better experience.
Thanks.
Great questions. Thank you very much. Yeah. Anybody else? Any comments or questions?
We're actually at 25.
Oh, wow, we are. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. If you want to follow up on any topic, you can find us on the Gconfigure channel in Slack. Thanks all. Have a great day.
Thanks, Daniel.